And welcome in. It is September 10th. We are officially underway with the NFL season. I am Flying Ryan Gilchrist, along with...
Ready to overreact to the first game, Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
Yes, Mike Evans is a complete bust. Antonio Brown's the best receiver in the league, unless it's Amari Cooper. First game of the season last night. Bucks, Cowboys, surprisingly a very good game throughout. Probably a little too close for comfort for you, Joel, being a Bucks fan. But
when you're just wondering why they keep trying to yak it away when it's the Cowboys, who apparently are not quite as bad as one tended to think they were.
Imagine that. Getting Dak Prescott back made them a little bit better. But we'll go through this game in full. Bucks 31, Cowboys 29 was the final score.
Yeah, because how about this? When you're talking that Ryan Suckup was the defining moment with just 2 seconds left, and that the Bucks did not cover as 9-point home favorites and only covered for those who teased down to 1.5 or better, and the game went over 52.5.
Yeah, I had it picked at 38-31 Bucks, so I didn't have them covering. I did have it going over, so not quite exact on the score, but I think we were going in the right direction. Both of us did hit, so we are both 1-0 in our picks. We will be doing the rest of our Week 1 picks here in a little bit after we cover the Thursday night game. So before we go into the player-by-player breakdown, Joel, tell me how you saw this game.
It was... I don't know. It was just sort of you tend for overreaction. Overreaction Friday. It's just Monday, just because anytime you usually have football, and you tend to think of it as it's the next day. Like, no, that was actually Thursday, and today's Friday, of somewhat of a bit of a rainy Friday. But I tell you, you're trying very hard, if you own any shares of Mike Evans, to not think of him as a fantasy wide receiver for the rest of the season. You're going off. It's just one game, but it was a nationally televised game. It was the only game on the entire schedule, and Mike Evans is the only one who sort of has a little bit of what I'll call overreaction fallout. On the other side of the ball, of course, Ezekiel Elliott owners have to be going, oh, cripes, what did we end up getting ourselves into? Especially if you're thinking about the Tony Pollard owners. Then on the flipping back over the other side of the ball, we have all of a sudden Ronald Jones owners absolutely in a state of shock, going, oh my God, I got to scramble, and now I got to go find Gio Bernard.
Yeah.
As it just, everything is kind of topsy-turvy after just 1 week. Everything that everybody thought that was going to happen, of course, which is why we love football, why we love fantasy football. Could you ever remember a time of football without fantasy football? It's why we love it. It's just so unpredictable and just out of nowhere. It's like, okay, everything's all already upside down, and this is just one game.
Yeah, let's start with those 3 players you had mentioned. Not Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, 3 for 24, 3 receptions for 24 yards. But the doom and gloom people out there who are like me think he's going to be good, and all of a sudden go, oh crap, he got outscored by Ryan Suckup last night healthily. That is one of my matchups right now. Mike Evans.
Drink is on that side. I try to have it in a safer place.
Yes, no more impromptu celebrations with the Gatorade today. But Mike Evans did have 6 targets, and 2 of the incompletions thrown to Mike Evans were just absolutely fantastic defensive plays to tip the ball, including the one in the final drive where,
AB really did look good.
Yeah, he did. But Trayvon Diggs, I think is his name. I know Diggs is the last name. I don't know the first name. Absolute sprawling back, barely gets the fingertips to the ball. Stops what probably would have been a 30, 40-yard gain from Mike Evans just on that alone. He gets another reception, He gets another 30 yards. All of a sudden, you're looking at like a 12-point night, and you go, well, I mean, he was okay. There are going to be nights for sure with the Bucs offense where somebody is going to come up short. This week, it was Mike Evans. Don't panic. If you get a good offer for him,
You had to love
maybe, but
Godwin getting the first touch. I mean, you're just like, that was just poetry in motion.
yeah, as I had him as my number one fantasy zero on Wednesday, I did not like that as much. Now, as far as Zeke goes, this is not a surprise that Zeke had a rough night for a few reasons. One, Zach Martin was out for the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. They had to keep Zeke in to protect. Two, the Tampa Bay running defense has been the best in the league for the last 2+ seasons.
No shock there.
Yeah, so you kind of expected that. He goes 11 carries for 33 yards, not a lot of opportunity. Only 2 receptions for 6 yards, which leaves him with 5.9 PPR points. Evans, by the way, 5.4 in a PPR. Neither one of them great nights, but don't panic. There's going to be times where your studs are going to have bad nights, especially when they had to throw the game plan out, essentially, because of the way the defense plays. Ronald Jones was terrible. Let's just not sugarcoat it. He was a negative player. I think negative 0.6 with that fumble. More on that later. So let's go through the rest of the statistics for this game. Dallas, we'll start with the losers. Dak Prescott, 42 of 58 for 403
yards. It was definitely
yards.
one of those games that both teams won fantasy-wise, even though you had a winner and a loser.
Yeah. Dak Prescott, 42 of 58, 403, 3 touchdowns and a pick that couldn't have been thrown better. Hit CeeDee Lamb in the hands and bounced off. Zeke Elliott, we mentioned 11 for 33 yards, 2 receptions for 6 yards. Prescott, by the way, 29.42 standard quarterback points. If you're in crazy leagues, which will be part of my final thoughts, he had a much better number. CeeDee Lamb lived up to the hype last night, at least 7 for 104 and a touchdown with 23.4 fantasy points. All of these are PPR. Amari Cooper, possibly the biggest star of the night, though, if not Dak. 13 catches.
Dak to Amari twice.
Yeah, 13 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns for a whopping 38.9 PPR points. And then Michael Gallup, who was injured and will be out multiple weeks after this game. 4 catches for 36, was playing pretty well before he got hurt. Then we go to the Buccaneers side, a little bit longer list because they had more contributors. We already mentioned Evans with the 3 for 24, 5.4 points. Tom Brady, though, 32 of 50, 379, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, one of which had a Hail Mary at the end of the quarter for 27.16 points. Leonard Fournette did not have a whole lot more success running the ball, had a little more activity in the passing game than Zeke did. 9 carries for 32 yards, 5 catches for another 27, bringing his total to 10.9 fantasy points. And then Chris Godwin, 9 for 105 and a touchdown, 25.5 points. Very good game for someone I thought was going to be a little bit of a bust. I do think who has the bad week is going to rotate with his team, though. Then
Gronk definitely surprised some owners.
Yes, we'll get to that here in a second. First, Antonio Brown, 5 for 121 and 1, 23.7. I have him in our 16-team league as my wide receiver, too. That's looking like a very, very good choice at this point. And then the Megla Bowl team behind me in the top corner. That is the 15,000 person entrant team. I punted on tight ends, and I ended up with one Rob Gronkowski. I felt like crap about it. And then he goes 8 catches, 90 yards for 2 touchdowns, a whopping 29 points for someone that was a 12th round pick in that league. I'm very happy with that. So pretty much all the Bucs produced other than Rojo and Evans.
And as a Bucs fan, I definitely have to. I'm sure this is probably not talked at all in Dallas. One iota how Chris Godwin, of course, which was not called for an offensive pass interference, and that ended up setting up the game-winning field goal for the Bucs. And if it had been called pass interference, what do you think?
It may have been different. We don't know. It may have been different. It may not have been. It was borderline enough where I'm glad they didn't make that call and determine the game. Oh, we made the call. We pushed them back 10, 15 yards, whatever it is. And, oh, well, the Bucs now are out of field goal range. They won't get back into field goal range. The game is over. Bit of a rough call. I think it was offensive pass interference. It was marginal enough. I'm fine with them letting that one go.
I'm sure the refs will have more than enough opportunities this Sunday to mess things up.
Yes, the refs, remember, they're coming out of their preseason as well, so they will not be in tip-top shape where they never make a mistake because they never make a mistake midseason or postseason ever. So, Bucs officially 1-0. Cowboys 0-1. I think the takeaway here is the Bucs are still good, but the Cowboys might be a team to reckon with, especially in that soft NFC East. And
could they end up running the roost in the NFC least?
I think they have a shot at it. It's going to be between them and Washington to me. And last night may have swayed me more towards Dallas might be the team to do it.
Yeah, because, you have an unproven as far as the Eagles go with Ertz. Daniel Jones was Daniel Jones.
Yeah, the Eagles and the Giants, there's a lot of questions with the Giants on health. There's a lot of questions with the Eagles as, well, are any of these players good? Because Hurts, Rieger, Devontae Smith, all their offensive weapons, even Miles Sanders has been a disappointment in 2 seasons. You really never know. Washington has that great defense. It seems like they're going in the right direction offensively. I think Gibson's going to be one of the best players in the league this season. And then Dallas, you saw what they did last night. And if Dak Prescott can go for 400 yards against the Bucs defense, I have a feeling when he plays the Eagles, when he plays the Giants, who do not have a defense, he is going to go absolutely crazy. But then Zeke will get involved there a little bit more as well. So we'll see. I think Tampa is definitely the team to beat in the NFC South. I don't think there's a whole lot of competition there this year. Dallas, though, made a good statement even in a loss last night. Again, Bucs 31, Cowboys 29, and that is game 1 of 285 on the season. Before we get to picks, I think we do have to mention a certain cursed city in Maryland. Everybody's going down in Baltimore right now. Everybody knows J.K. Dobbins tore an ACL about a week and a half ago. Then a few days later, Justice Hill, the fourth string running back, popped his Achilles tendon. He is out for the season. And then yesterday, Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters. Gus Edwards, of course, another running back, Marcus Peters in the secondary, both with a torn ACL on back-to-back plays in practice. So I'm going to apologize for picking them for the Super Bowl. I am definitely not sticking with that. I think I'm going to change it to Buffalo in hopes that the curse will transfer to Buffalo. But I still think Green Bay will win it. But, yeah, Joel, very, very scary and sad situation right now in Baltimore for their offense. Tyson Williams, the number 1 running back.
Yeah, when you have Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman as your backups, you're not in a good place.
Yeah. Yeah, Latavius Murray coming to the rescue, possibly. Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman all look kind of washed. Well, Murray looked all right last year. The other ones did not. So it's going to be tough for Baltimore. I think this kind of takes them out of real contention this year. They might make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be a championship contender once they lost Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters, again, on back-to-back plays before they said, you know what, we're going to call it a day. This is not going well. So, both start the season 1-0. Both are ready to go with their picks for week number 1, both of us, I believe. Again, we are doing ours online. You can compete with us at runyourpool.com. We posted the link a while ago. We do have 5 people in it, 4 of which got last night's game right, and 1 person was surprisingly close. So, Joel, are you ready to go through the picks for week number 1? We are going to start with the Battle of the Birds. Philadelphia going to Atlanta. This was one of the harder games for me to pick because these 2 teams have no defense, possibly very good offenses. It's going to be a shootout, probably to my estimation, the highest scoring game of the week. But Joel, the question is, who you got in the Battle of the Birds?
Well, it's very tough for me to end up going with the Eagles just because of I know I ended up drafting him in fantasy, and Jalen Hurts definitely has his upside, but you also tend to have, when you're looking at reality football, so many question marks, and this game should answer some. You have new head coaches on both sides. No Julio Jones, but can Kyle Pitts step up as the new weapon for Matt Ryan? And Ugh, Eagles, the better of the two defenses here, but the Eagles D isn't really anything to write home about. It's kind of tough picking either team, but I have to roll with the experienced hand over Matt Ryan over the unproven hand of one Jalen Hurts.
So you are on the Falcons in this one, or the Eagles? Falcons. All
Correct.
right. This is the hardest one for me, and I'm still kind of going back and forth, but I'm going to land with you with the Falcons for two reasons. I trust Matt Ryan more than I trust Jalen Hurts, and this is going to be the first time for a lot of these teams having a crowd in the building. I think that will affect Jalen Hurts more. Obviously, the road crowd for the Eagles will be boisterous because they always are, but the home crowd for Atlanta is going to be very loud. It's going to cause problems for Jalen Hurts. And that offense, I think that's too young of a team. They're just not ready, and the offensive line is terrible. So I'm going to go with Atlanta as well. Not one I'm super confident in, but we're going to go with it. Next up, we have Pittsburgh going to Buffalo. Pittsburgh, of course, choked away the end of last season. Buffalo lost in the AFC title game to the Chiefs. Joel, who you got?
This is one that you just have to wonder, will this be Big Ben's final season? Probably one of those games to pass. It's just it's very hard, very, very, very hard to choose the Steelers in this one. I gotta go Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to go Buffalo as well. Again, the home field advantage in Buffalo is going to be great. I think Ben Roethlisberger has a few good games left in him. Buffalo's defense is very, very good. They don't have a running game, but I think they'll be able to take care of business here at home. Pittsburgh, not a great offensive line, rookie running back, probably going to have some issues early on. Not to mention TJ Watt didn't practice until recently with his signed massive contract. I just trust Buffalo a little bit more at this point. It should be a good game, but I'm going to take the home team in this one. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Joe Burrow's first real action since his catastrophic knee injury last season. The Minnesota defense has been rebuilt, but in theory, the Bengals offensive line has improved as well. Anything unexpected here, Joel?
For an early game in Paul Brown Stadium up in Ohio, not a really big spread as far as this goes, over and under 48, going to be on Fox. Just going to have to wonder who has a rougher start. A declining Kirk Cousins or a Joe Burrow who's trying to figure things out. Neither quarterback really fills you with fantasy confidence, but if Burrow can get something going with Chase, who knows? I mean, Minnesota obviously starts Cook and Jefferson, and Cincinnati, cringe and start mixing along with Higgins. But as far as who I'm picking, it's just, uh, you kind of cringe when you think the Vikings, but it's just a question of, once again, unproven with the Bungles. And as good as they've looked, they've also had some quirks. So, yeah, I got to kind of cringe and go with Minnesota.
I'm going to go with Minnesota as well, but I am not cringing. I think Dalvin Cook is better than Joe Mixon. That offensive line is better than Cincinnati offensive line. That defense is better than Cincinnati's defense. And I think for the most part, the weapons on Minnesota are better than what they are in Cincinnati. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen over Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase all day, I think. So to me, I think it's a pretty clear one. Minnesota's just the better team. And you say Kirk Cousins is declining. He's very steady. He's very consistent, and he's going to get the job done against a lesser opponent like he always seems to do. Next up, though, we have probably the biggest mismatch in my mind of the week, but we'll see if Joel agrees. San Francisco going to Detroit, seeing their old rival Jared Goff in the light Detroit Lions blue. Detroit, I couldn't name all of their receivers if I had to, and I do podcasts on football every now and again. So,
Well, you can just kind of tell with your question of the whole mismatch issue. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's 1 o'clock early start. Ford Field, 7.5 betting spread with San Francisco as the favorite. Fox is the network that has to air this. Crap. Kyle, you know what of the game that I think
it
was.
is not the national game.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's week one, so guess what? Jimmy G isn't injured. You're going to start Mozart Ayuk for Detroit. Swift sort of kind of cringe a little bit, but start him. Hawkinson, of course, is a tight end one. I think the two quarterbacks aren't really all that startable with Goff and Garoppolo, unless they're your only real option to go for. And as far as who am I picking as far as the mismatch, I can't really pick Detroit in this one by any stretch of the imagination. I got to go with the Niners.
Yeah, you pretty much agree with everything Joel just said. If you're playing Garoppolo and Golf, go to your waivers because Garoppolo and Golf are waiver fodder in the 16-team league. So if you're in anything smaller, you have better options. Pick up Sam Darnold, pick up Teddy Bridgewater, pick up any
As
number of guys. They'll be
as
better
the
than those two.
obligatory joke would go, it's time to get Goff this train.
Yeah,
Art,
so
art.
I'm going to go with San Francisco as well. And so far, 4 for 4 on agreement. So this is super exciting. Next up, though, this one could get interesting. Arizona going to Tennessee to face the Titans. Arizona, in theory, is an ascending team. Tennessee is a powerhouse in the AFC, likely another playoff run in them. Joel, who do you got in this one?
This one yet another early start up there in Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Not a lot of spread as far as this one goes. -3 for Tennessee, 52 total over under. Going to be on CBS. And this is the first game that I actually think you're starting both of the quarterbacks, Tannehill, low end QB1. Tennessee, obvious duh. You're starting Henry if you have him. That's got to be one of the biggest does. And Jones, a wide receiver, two. For Arizona, of course, Edmonds, low end RB2. Hopkins is classified as a dust start. And this could be a good offensive battle on paper. The question is what happened once reality starts? And looking at both teams, I gotta go with the one that has Derrick Henry, who can just be. We've seen what he can do to opposing tackles. Absolutely mow them down.
Yeah.
Josh Norman.
All right. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
on
gotta go
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I'm on Tennessee as well. I think this would be a close game. Arizona's going to put up a good fight, but I think that running game with Derrick Henry is going to wear that defense down, and then it's just not going to go well. Close game, but I do have Tennessee as well. Next up, Seattle going to Indianapolis. Carson Wentz coming back from injury. Quentin Nelson coming back from the same injury. They did just re-sign Naeem Hines to a 3-year, $18.6 million contract, which makes a lot of sense when you have Jonathan Taylor. Seattle, of course, has their superstar weapons in Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Chris Carson. This one, I think, is going to be the hardest for me to pick one way or the other. But, Joel, I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, in another 1 o'clock start up there in the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Not a lot of spread here, just 1.5 for Indianapolis, 53.5 total over and under, going to be on Fox. Of course, Seattle, you're starting Wilson, Carson, DK Lockett, and Everett. Indianapolis, you're starting Wentz, Taylor, Pittman, Jr., and Doyle. As who is it that I tend to think is going to win? That's kind of a toughie because you're tossing it back and forth. You're looking at both teams, and there's where we end up, of course, having. I'm losing my train of thought here.
Seattle and Indianapolis need a winner.
Need a winner, 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 chicken dinner. That's,
I said this is going to
I
be a hard one of the hardest ones to pick.
yeah, I know because you've got Wentz, and then you've got also Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson has definitely had some of those questionable games, but when you're still looking at the total tail of tape for both quarterbacks, I gotta say let Russ cook, and I'm going with Seattle.
All right, we are finally disagreeing on something. I'm going to go with the Colts just because I think that Seattle defense is not great. I think the home field advantage will play large for a lot of the teams this week. Indianapolis has a better defense than the Seahawks. I think their offenses are comparable, maybe a little bit better than the receivers for Seattle, but I would definitely take Jonathan Taylor over Chris Carson. I think this will be a close game, but I'm going to take Indianapolis just by a little bit. And we continue on. The Los Angeles Chargers going across the country to the East Coast time zone to play the Washington Turds. The reigning NFC East champions take on the reigning Rookie of the Year in Justin Trashcan Herbert. Joel, I know you're really, really high on Herbert, and I am never high on Herbert, but tell me what you think.
Yeah, because of course it's a yet another exciting 1 o'clock start, which you never know what the 1 o'clock start if you're going to get a good game, or it's just going to be one of those games sort of okay. Can we just get to the late ones? Of course, a good old FedEx Field, -1 as far as the spread goes for this one. And of course, if Chargers, you're starting Herbert, Eckler, definitely monitor him very closely.
Yep.
Allen, Williams, and Cook. And for the Turds, definitely Gibson and McKissick, as well as McLaurin, obviously. And Samuel Flex, of course, Logan. And Logan Thomas, of course. Sit fits magic unless he's your starter. And if he's your starter, you're probably in a very deep league. Now, a question between the Chargers and the Turds. Whom, whom, whom did I end up picking? Did I pick the Washington Turds? Nope, I don't see WAS, so I definitely ended up picking the former team that was in San Diego.
Yeah, it's if you click on the list of just the names, it'll pop up with the full matchups. I found that out the hard way. Anyways, Washington has a great defense. They were one of the toughest against the run and the pass. Austin Eckler does have a hamstring injury. Washington comes into this game mostly healthy with the exception of Curtis Samuel, but I'm not counting on very much from him anyways. I've said before, I think Gibson might be the number one player in fantasy this season. I am going to roll with the Turds. Also, just I can't go for Herbert this early in the season. It just looks weak. Anyways, the games keep getting exciting. They keep getting better. Next up, the Jets and the Panthers in Carolina. The New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers, Joel. I don't know how to preview this game where it's not super exciting. Sam Darnold revenge game. Let's go.
As we travel on over to Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina, with an exciting spread of New York Jets, 5.545 total. Of course, on CBS, as I'm sure millions and millions will be congregating to watch this game, or maybe not. Of course, you're sitting Wilson, you're starting Donald. Jets sit all the running backs. Seriously. Wide receivers start Davis and Moore as a flex. Carolina, you're starting CMC. Duh. And for the wide receivers, that's Moore and Anderson. Not a lot of real fantasy to gold to mine from this game. It's just kind of and it's just kind of one of those duh picks you got to pick Carolina. I'm sorry. I'm looking at both sides of the ball. I'm going, I can't.
Yeah, Carolina's just a better team all around. CMC should have a good game. I think Darnold's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be a good daily fantasy play. If you have him in season long, which I sadly do in places, I think I'm playing him over Carson Wentz because our 16-teamer, I punted on the position. I think Carolina's the better team just all around. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I think people are going to overreact on the Zach Wilson hype after this week, and we're going to have to remind them it's still just playing Carolina. Let's calm it down. Oh, and you thought that one was bad. The next game, possibly one of the two worst games all season, only because this game will happen twice. Jacksonville at Houston. The first ever start for Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars. Deshaun Watson officially out, to the shock of absolutely no one. Tyrod Taylor getting the start. Brandon Cooks, Phillip Lindsay, I guess the best options for the Texans. Jacksonville, you have at least Chark, Jones, Chenault, and I think James Robinson will be a great play. But I don't want to step on your toes too much. Joel, tell me who's the winner.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with what you end up saying. I think you're sitting Trevor Lawrence for this game that will be taking place at one NRG Stadium. Jacksonville minus 2.5 for the spread, 45.5 total for the over and under network CBS. I know you talk about the turds, I don't know. As much as you kind of tend to cringe when you're talking Jacksonville, on the other hand, at least their quarterback situation is settled. It's fluid. They have one that is not embroiled in legal troubles up the yin yang. And sorry, Houston, I can't believe this, but I'm picking the Jags.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be picking Houston a lot this season unless Deshaun Watson comes back. Just spoiler alert on the 2021 season, the Houston Texans are going to suck. Yeah, it's got to be Jacksonville. Houston had one of the worst run defenses last year, and they didn't get better. James Robinson was one of the best running backs last year, and he's got the job to himself once again. Houston had one of the worst pass defenses of the league last year, and they traded away their best corner who was already suspended to the Saints. So they did not get better there either. If there's a week to play Trevor Lawrence in a streaming the quarterback situation or in a 2-quarterback league, which I have a super flex, he is in my super flex, could be a good week. This is one of those times where you hope, if you were like me and you got some shares of Chark, even though you weren't excited about it, you go, well, maybe Chark can put up a Antonio Brown type of game. Doesn't have to go absolutely crazy, but 6 catches, 100-something yards, and a touchdown. You go, hey, let's dangle him for maybe you can get something back for him. But I have to go with Jacksonville just because Houston is hot garbage. And I don't see much hope for them winning unless Deshaun Watson comes back. Now, mercifully, we go to a game that is actually worth watching. The Cleveland Browns, which I'm still surprised I can say a game worth watching, start with the Cleveland Browns. But Cleveland Browns going to the defending AFC champion, the 2-time defending AFC champion, Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs trying to get back to the Super Bowl for what seems like the 27th year in a row at this point. Any hope for the Browns here, Joel?
Yes, because we're going to Arrowhead Stadium 425, finally late start. That means it might actually be a good game. Kansas City minus 654.5 total for the over and under, and that's going to be on CBS. I have a feeling some people might actually tune in to watch this game. I think you're sitting Baker Mayfield. You're obviously starting Chubb and Hunt. That's sort of a duh. That's like saying, I don't know. I have this Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelsey guy. Should I start the? Let me think about that. What would you say to that when I'd say yes?
Honestly, in one of my dynasty leagues, I'm playing against Pat Mahomes, and frankly, I would love it if he got benched. I I don't think it's going to happen. With that being said, I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think Baker Mayfield's a sneaky good play this week. Kansas City does not have the greatest defense, and I think he can put up some good points. But I'm going to take Kansas City to win this one.
I agree because while Cleveland and Baker Mayfield could have a good fantasy day, I don't think that translates into a good reality day with the coming away with a surprise win.
No, I could see this being a moderately high-scoring game, both teams to the mid-20s, low 30s, kind of like what we saw last night, but maybe not as high offensive paced like we had. Next up, we go to...
It's hard thinking about a Thursday night football game, high offensive pace. Usually the two tend not to go together.
Well, usually they put crap games on. Oh, it's the Jaguars and the Jets on Thursday night football. It's like, I'm going to watch it because I have nothing better to do, and I'm a sadistic person who's addicted to fantasy football, but I'm not excited to watch that game.
That's when
last night I was looking forward to
fantasy football.
Yeah. well, I got to watch. I got chart going. Why do you have chart going? Because I got problems. Next up, we go Miami at New England. Mac Jones, the starter for the New England Patriots. No more Sony Michel in New England. It seems like Miami is pretty settled on Tua Tagovailoa. No Will Fuller this week with the suspension, but I think it's an advantage for Miami to go to New England and Buffalo and New York in September as opposed to December. So that's at least lucky on that end of things. Joel, which team do you see coming out on top between the Dolphins and the Patriots?
As we're definitely in the late game window, 425, Gillette Stadium up in Massachusetts, minus 1.5 spread for the New England Patriots, 46.5 total over and under network CBS. And definitely sitting both quarterbacks, I think, in this case, unless you really, really need to start them. And you just tend to look just a question of one quarterback over the other. Both need to prove themselves. And I'm just sort of, as much as New England has seen a lot of flux and a lot of craziness, of course, with the whole Cam Newton situation coming, and now he's gone out of there.
He gone.
I still don't find a lot of confidence in your quarterback in Miami, in Tua. And I know that they say don't make a big deal about the fact that he wasn't named team captain. It's like, okay, it's sort of one of those things these aren't the droids you're looking for. Don't make such a big deal about this. Usually means people are going to make a big deal about it. And even though quarterback quandary on the other side, equally unproven, I'm going to roll with the Patriots because the Patriots are coming off of that disastrous year, all the opt-outs, everybody quitting because of COVID last year. This year they spent a crap ton of money in free agency to try to get the team back to its former shell of itself. And I think they're headed in the right direction. Are they going to go playoffs? Are they going to go back to the Super Bowl? I think they'll be lucky if they sniff the playoffs. But I think the Patriots are going to be a better team this year. So that's why I'm picking New England.
I agree that New England's going to be better than they were last year, but I think Miami's going to be better than people think. And they were almost a playoff team last year. Tua beat them last year. He beat the New England Patriots last year. He looked much better to me in the preseason than he did the year prior. He was 6-3 as a starter last year. The weapons around him are better. As far as fantasy goes, I think the only person you could realistically start is the man with the jersey right behind me, Myles Gaskin. And even then, there is a risk because both of these defenses are going to be absolutely fantastic. But Bill Belichick is very good against rookie quarterbacks. However, Brian Flores learned from Bill Belichick, and Mac Jones, to my knowledge, is still a rookie quarterback in his first ever start. I think there's going to be nerves. There's going to be jitters. You have Xavier Howard, who led the league. Well, I think the most interceptions in about 10 years, 10, 12 years. With 10 last year, he's going to probably get an interception in this one. And I just think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, probably a 21-17 type of score. And I think Miami comes out on top. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way, but I'm going to stick with Miami on this one. Yeah, call me a homer. I don't care. Next up, we have Joel's favorite quarterback, who is not Tom Brady, the former starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jameis Winston, hosting the Green Bay Packers in Jacksonville. So not a proper home field advantage this week for the Saints. Green Bay comes in with an Aaron Rodgers ticked off, gonna flip off the world vibe. New Orleans seems to have settled on a quarterback for now. No Latavius Murray, who's been cut. No Michael Thomas, who has been on IR with the pup list with the ankle problem. Joel, tell me who wins this one.
All right, as we have a decent game, even though the Saints are a definite shell of their former selves. 425 Bank Field in Jacksonville, of course, relocated because of all the incredible devastation because of Hurricane Ada. Green Bay coming in 4.5 favorites. Total right on the 5 and the 0. That's fairly rare for the over and under. Going to be on Fox. And definitely, if you have Aaron Rodgers, you start him. I'd be a little wary about starting one famous Jameis, though. I mean, if you don't have a better option, you sort of roll with the punches. And okay, if you tend to yell at your screen a lot, don't blame me. But that's probably why it was such a late dartboard esque throw. When you're coming down to it, you go, okay, so who am I picking? Am I picking the quarterback that's got his chip on his shoulder? Am I picking the guy that is having the problems with the tackling dummy? And I'm going to do one of these crazy, all crazy picks, just because this is one of those what I like to call intangible picks, because yeah, on you have looking at the math, you're going, okay, Aaron Rodgers is coming and ticked off. You're having a Saints team that they're trying to figure out who they are. They don't have a lot of chemistry. The one thing you tend to think of, just lean towards the Packers. Here's why I'm choosing the Saints. This is what I like to call one of those intangible things where they're just trying to get everyone together back on the same page. They're trying to help everyone just sort of distract basically from everything that's going on in New Orleans and sports, as we've seen with, unfortunately, with what the anniversary is of tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, unfortunately, we all know where we were in the morning when 9/11 happened. And we all know how, and I know this is more of a final thought type thing, but I'm just throwing this out there now, that we all know how much sports can help people recover when you have something like a 9/11, and taking all politics out there. When we saw President Bush come out to make the pitch, it just sort of, everything felt a little bit more normal. Not that everything was going to all of a sudden magically be better, the world all of a sudden healed. And that is what I think that the Saints can do for their city, and why I'm picking them. It's just sort of one of these intangible things. The Houston Astros, for example, before they became the villains of all of baseball, you had the Hurricane Harvey hit the city, and all of a sudden they came out, and before everyone realized all the shenanigans that went behind the scenes, I was actually cheering for them. I'm going, okay, Astros are a good team. Yeah, they bounced back. Their city got walloped, and before we knew what complete, utter all the stuff that happened behind the scenes, and when they came from good guys to bad. And I tend to think that the Saints can end up somehow, just all the troubles, all the Michael Thomas troubles, the change at quarterback, Drew Brees retiring, they can get past all that by rallying together for New Orleans. And that's why I'm picking the New Orleans Saints with my rather long-winded monologue there.
So Joel is taking the Saints because of 9/11. Let's go. No,
15,
yeah.
15 minutes later.
Yeah. Joel is taking the Saints. I do get the inspirational side of things, and obviously the Saints have gone through this before. 15
It's
years
just
ago
it's
with
just
Katrina.
it's just one of those intangible things that is part of the human condition that you can never explain.
Yeah, I had hit on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans went through this before, but they were not good until they went back to
It's
New Orleans.
a basketball perfect basketball version would be the horrible Kobe Bryant tragedy, and then they had the Lakers go out and win that. It's just one of those you can't explain it. It's just a part of the human condition.
Yeah, with all that being said, I think the Saints get stomped.
Thanks for pouring the cold bucket of water in reality there, Flying.
Hey,
Thank you.
here it is. Inspiration. No.
I'm trying. I'm trying to be a beacon of light out there. What was that? 1,000 points of light. I think that was the
Yeah.
thing at the time. And
Um
you're just dimming it all.
yeah. Now, I think you do start Jameis. I am starting him in a league, and my wife is going to probably kick the crap out of me this week because, well, she had Brady and she had Fournette, and that kind of went well for her last night. But
Go, Brittany.
yeah, I know. And everybody roots for her because she's beaten me once before. It's not the first time. It just doesn't feel good, damn it. But anyways, I have Devontae Adams
There's
and I have Aaron
another
Rodgers
out
in
of
that.
context.
I have Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers as a stack. Our buddy Chris, who podcasted with us about a week and a half ago, has them in this league, the family league, where my wife's going to kick the crap out of me. I think it's going to be a potent stack. I think that alone could win me a week where Mike Evans just got me non-PPR points, 2.5. No Marshawn Lattimore possibly on the injury report for the Saints, which means Devontae Adams is going to be going up against what will soon be their cornerback 3 because they did trade for Bradley Roby.
Jameis, don't flick the back of his helmet. He's on your team this time.
Yeah. The good news for Jameis Winston is if they are getting stomped, that means he's going to be able to throw the ball, and if he throws the ball correctly, he's going to get a lot of yards, a lot of points.
Remembering the time that Jameis caused Mike Evans to get suspended because he got into it with Lattimore.
Yeah. Marshawn Lattimore now his best friend, I guess. But I'm going to take the Packers in what I expect to be a stomping. Joel is going for the Disney script movie where the Saints overcome a hurricane again and win. So I guess you know who is calling this a glass half full and who is calling it a glass half empty. All right, so we spent a lot of time on that one. So let's go through the next one pretty quick. Denver at the Giants. Okay, Joel.
Let's see. So Denver at the Giants. I guess that means it's going to be a game, right?
It is an NFL game on the schedule, like Jacksonville and Houston. It will be played, and it will probably suck.
Yes, and it will suck. And even though it's one of those late games that, yeah, you're just sort of going, is it over yet up there in New Jersey? Which the only people who say New Jersey that way are people who are not from New Jersey.
Not to mention, New Jersey just had a lot of impacts from Ida as well. Are they going to be inspired? They were flooded. I know that for a fact.
Oh, yeah, some of those videos were just ridiculous. Denver -3, 42 total over and under. And, yes, it's the Bridgewater Daniel Jones duel that
We've all been waiting for.
You're not starting either of these quarterbacks unless you are highly, and let me say that one more time, highly desperate.
2 quarterbacks, super flex, or 20-plus team leagues is the only place this should even be considered.
Just, you're I don't know, because as bad as the Giants are with the brawling in practice, the just Daniel Jones being Daniel Jones, I know it's absolutely crazy. I'm I gotta go Denver with this game. As much as I haven't been able to back Daniel Jones and the Giants, and I know you have Teddy Bridgewater just as much of a question mark as quarterback, but ugh, he's got to be better than Jones.
I'm going to pick the Broncos as well on the side of the defense for the Broncos being better than the defense for the Giants. I think offensively, these teams are very similar. Bridgewater and Jones are comparable. You have Galladay, Shepard, nothing, nothing really
Some other guys.
crazy. Yeah. Darius Slayton is the other one I was trying to think of. Saquon Barkley is questionable, probably going to play. That is an advantage for the Giants as Barkley does play in full, but you've got Sutton, you've got Judy, you've got Tim Patrick, you've got Noah Fant, who's a better tight end, and you have the two-headed monster that is Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. I don't know when, but I think Javonte Williams will eventually take that starting role. But I just think the offenses are comparable, but the defense is just better for the Broncos. So I'm going to take Denver as well. Then we move to the primetime game that has to live up to what we just saw last night. The Chicago Bears go to the Los Angeles Rams to open SoFi Stadium with fans. Obviously, it wasn't used last year, but no fans in the building all season long. The Rams finally opening their stadium. I think this could be another intangible. Usually the high emotion games, bringing fans back, opening a building, does tend to work that way. But the Bears have a solid defense. The Rams have a solid defense. I'm interested to see what you do with this one.
As you said, prime time. That would be at SoFi Stadium. Los Angeles Rams 7.5 favorites. 46 total for the over and under. Yeah, you're probably sitting Andy Dalton if you have the misfortune of having drafted him. You're starting Matthew Stafford, and it's going to be weird start to a season, even though we've all know that the trade happens when we're seeing Matthew Stafford starting on a team not named the Detroit Lions, and I almost said Tigers because for some reason my brain went to baseball. I have no idea why. But
Well, we're at Lions. Then you have the Detroit Tigers. We're talking about the Bears. There you go. Lions and Tigers and Bears. Oh, my.
I know I was sort of heading there to myself as you just you're thinking Chicago, you're wondering Chicago, and then you're also remembering Nagy. So that's why I can't pick the Bears. And besides, then no.
Let's go here. Matt Nagy plus Andy Dalton. Does any of that make you confident? Does any of that make you think, oh, the Bears are good to go? One of the biggest stories of the offseason was, when is Justin Fields going to be the starter? How are they going to put Andy Dalton out there as a starter week one? Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Andy Dalton right now. The Bears have no shot in this game. The Rams are going to stomp them. The only Bear you may want to start is David Montgomery. I think he's going to be utilized heavily in the short passing game and the running game. There is really no competition there. The Rams, start him if you got him. Kupp, Woods, Higbee. You mentioned Stafford. I'd go as far as to say you can even put a flyer in for Sony Michel, Darrell Henderson. If you've got him, be ready to play him. Anybody realistic, but even Allen Robinson is not a sure thing to be great this week. Going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to take the Rams easily, and then we go to the saddest game of the week: the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders opening their Saints Traquan Smith short-term IR with an arm injury, by the way. The Vegas Raiders opening their new stadium with fans. It was open last year, but they said until we can have a packed house, nobody's allowed in other than broadcasters and referees and players. The Ravens down to their 97th running back on the roster. The injured list looks like almost a Pro Bowl team. And if you look at their signed running backs 5 years ago, you think this is an all-star team, but you look at it right now, you think, well, these guys are, in football terms, should be walking into the retirement home with their walkers, canes, and weird smells and limps. But the Ravens still have Lamar Jackson and a great defense. Vegas is still a little susceptible in some places, not to mention we don't know how the two-headed monster of Drake and Jacobs is going to work. And this is a tough one because of all the injuries. But Joel, who do you have here?
As for the final game, and it's weird because usually it's not the final game because you usually have an early game and you
Usually
have a
2 weeks.
later game, which is sort of just kind of a weird thing with everything else going on with all the schedule changes and general weirdness that's been happening this year because, well, it's hashtag COVID.
Yep. Still there.
So, I tell you, you're thinking about the Ravens, and it's just very, very hard picking the Raiders with how inconsistent a team they were going into that stretch and some of those games that they utterly yacked away with the coach, the caliber of Gruden on the sideline, and the Raiders have become a literal shadow of their former self. It's very hard going against the Ravens in this case, even with the Ravens going out there. I got to pick Baltimore and all the flap and one Mr. Lamar.
Yeah, I'm still on the Ravens. As much as I kicked around switching with this last injury, to me, if the difference between Gus Edwards and Tyson Williams is probably not as massive as J.K. Dobbins to Gus Edwards. In the first place, you still have Lamar Jackson, who is probably their best running threat as it is. You'll see a little bit more out of him. And I've been high on Marquise Brown, and I think this actually makes that claim a little bit better as he's their best receiver right now. There are some others out there. Sammy Watkins, who is a usual week one boom, so he might have a good game. And Mark Andrews is still in the building. I think they'll be good enough to beat the Vegas Raiders. When it comes full season, I think it's going to hurt. But week one, I think it will be just enough to beat the Raiders. So those are our picks. Make sure everything is in the website, Joel, so we will have our update on how we did next week. We will be back on Wednesday, and then next Friday, Saturday will get weird. We'll figure that out later. But we are not quite done on this one. So, Joel, go ahead with your final thoughts on this one, and I have a few I got to get prepared.
Oh, yeah, just a final thought is just as a reminder to take the sports schedule as it is and enjoy it. We have all the baseball going on. Hockey and basketball are kind of in hibernation right now, but soon they won't be. Football is finally back and starting up. And just as a reminder, between COVID, what happened last year, and that insane 100 plus days of no sports when the entire world was talking the last dance and the Tiger King, for God's sake, that just sort of a reminder to just be thankful for the normal as it is. Of course, with the anniversary, with what happened tomorrow, just just as a reminder how life can just absolutely change in one flash of a second, and all of a sudden normal to holy crap. It just sort of as we think about as we go through our daily lives, as just sort of enjoy who we have, as Chris Thomas always ended up saying, and I'll close with this: tell somebody you love you every day that you love them, because you never know what tomorrow will bring.
All right. Yep. Definitely keep the 20th anniversary in mind tomorrow. I'm sure we will see very, very impactful stuff tomorrow. I know the Yankees and Mets have a game that is going to bring back some reminiscence of that first pitch you had mentioned, just how we all were that time ago. For me, I'm going to keep with sports, and yeah. Let's start with fantasy scoring. We all get used to the standard, 0.1 for rushing yards, 4 points for quarterback touchdowns. I encourage you to try weird stuff. Now, with that being said, there is a dynasty league I'm in that is point per completion, and 6 points per passing touchdown.
That has to be fun.
Yes. For example, Dak Prescott was my first round pick in that league. He was projected for 48.14 points last night. Joel, with knowing what he did 19.42 in the standard scoring. He had his projection beat just after halftime. He ended up with 74.42 points in this game. He raised my projection by 26 points, and I'm still projected to lose because the other person had Amari freaking Cooper. But I encourage you to
projections, Batman.
Yeah, I encourage you to try different things because it does make the game a little more interesting. That's why I wanted to get in the Mega Bowl this year. That's why we did our best ball. That's why I did this league with the crazy scoring, because I wanted to do some things that are different. Secondly, we talked a lot today about the games that are coming up and who you should play and who you shouldn't play. At no point, outside of maybe Allen Robinson, did we mention anybody that you would have picked in the first 4 rounds of a draft that should not be in your lineup. Yes, you'll have those Mike Evans last night and Zeke Elliott type of games where they bust a little bit. But in general, you're going to be better playing your studs. Now, with
even when it was last year and you're hitting your head and was getting to the wall with Rashard Higgins.
Well, he's not a stud. But with that being said, in our 16-team league, we have somebody who is winning a game that hasn't had a player start yet. They are up 0 to negative 0.6. Joel, you can look this up if you'd like. I am 100% serious. They started Ronald Jones as their RB2. Looking at their team, okay, fine. You have Sony Michel, and that's about it at running back.
Or the 10 team?
This is the 16-teamer. So running backs on this team, Aaron Jones, Ronald Jones, and Sony Michel. You're kind of pigeonholed. Okay, you played Ronald Jones. I can live with that. But the problem is on his bench was one C.D. Lamb, who in the 16-team league would have been a second or third round pick. C.D. Lamb on his bench got 23.4, as we mentioned earlier, which would have had him well projected to win, even having to play Ronald Jones, who busted. And oh, by the way, who did he play over C.D. Lamb? Cooper Kupp. I think that's fair. Robbie Anderson in the flex. I'm high on him. He's got a great matchup. But the last one, we talked about the Dolphins and Patriots game. And we said maybe Gaskin's about the only person you want to play. Devontae Parker is the wide receiver too. Could have been C.D. Lamb. And yes, it's rare to see. Don't bench your studs in week 1 just because of matchup. You don't bench your studs because they have a rough matchup. Your studs are supposed to be good enough to beat that matchup.
That's going to be one hell of a way to start off your fantasy year with a minus 0.6.
Yeah. Yeah, as of right now, Ronald Jones is the lowest scoring player in fantasy, and 90% of the league has yet to take a snap. He is below 0. He is bad.
When you're already going, okay, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yes, and Joel, I do want to make a mention that I did offer you an Antonio Brown trade, and you did not want to do it, and I'm very happy you did not want to do it because his 23.7 has me now projected to win by 26 points. With that being said, that's going to wrap it up for our final thoughts. Again, thank anybody who does actually watch this for taking the time to hear us yak for this long. Yeah, just kind of reflect and remember what yesterday or what tomorrow really is. Reflect on, I got to think everybody listening to this or watching this has been around for the last 20 plus years. I was in school, but I do remember it vividly. And just remember, when someone cuts you off in traffic or does something stupid, as long as you're fine, it's not that big of a deal. There are always bigger things out there. So with that, I am still flying Ryan. Joel is still Motor Mouth. And with that, we go.